Jason Collins opens up about his fight with stage 4 glioblastoma. Jason Collins spent 13 years in the NBA battling in the paint against some of the league's biggest stars. Now at 47, the former center and a trailblazing first openly gay active NBA player is facing a far more personal opponent, stage 4 glioblastoma, one of the most aggressive forms of brain cancer. Collins revealed the full extent of his diagnosis in a first-person essay, explaining how quickly his life flipped from wedding celebrations and tennis trips to hospitals, scans, and experimental treatment plans. ESPN.com. From dream wedding to sudden symptoms. In May, Collins married film producer Brunson Green in Austin, Texas, describing the ceremony as everything they had hoped for. Only a few months later, subtle but worrying changes began to creep into his everyday life. He started struggling with simple tasks, packing for trips, staying focused, keeping track of what he was doing. When the couple tried to head to the US Open in late summer, Collins couldn't even get ready in time, and they missed a flight for the first time in decades. At first, he brushed things off with the mentality he'd carried throughout his career: push through, don't complain, keep going. But the symptoms escalated so fast that his family urged him to get checked. A CT scan at UCLA took only a few minutes before technicians pulled him out and called in specialists. Collins, who had scans before, knew that wasn't normal. Something serious had shown up almost immediately. The diagnosis, stage 4 glioblastoma. Doctors eventually confirmed that Collins had glioblastoma, a grade 4 brain cancer that grows rapidly and infiltrates surrounding tissue. In his case, the tumor was described as multiform, spreading in a butterfly pattern across both hemispheres of his brain and pushing into the frontal lobe, the region tied to personality, decision-making, and identity. Glioblastoma carries one of the bleakest prognoses in oncology. Even with treatment, average survival is roughly 12 to 18 months, and only a small minority of patients live beyond 5 years. Collins' medical team told his family that, without urgent action, the tumor could have ended his life within weeks. To make matters worse, testing showed his cancer was wild type, with mutations that make standard chemotherapy, particularly the commonly used drug temozolomide, far less effective. Lost in a fog and slowly coming back while his family and husband were hearing the full, grim briefing from doctors, Collins himself was barely aware. He describes that period as a kind of mental blackout. His short-term memory and comprehension collapsed, his personality shifted, and he drifted through days like a different person. Friends and relatives came to see him, unsure if they were saying goodbye. The first major step in treatment was the drug Avastin, designed to starve the tumor of the blood supply it needs to grow. That was followed by radiation therapy. At first, he had to be wheeled into the treatment room. Within a few sessions, he could walk in on his own. By mid-October, he was taking short walks around his neighborhood, slowly reclaiming pieces of his old life. When the fog lifted, Collins did what he'd always done as an athlete. He started studying the opponent. He dove into research on glioblastoma, its typical course, and what options were available to him beyond the standard protocol. An athlete's mindset in a life where death battle. Collins has always seen himself as someone who doesn't shy away from hard fights. On the court, that meant defending dominant centers like Shaquille O'Neal. Off the court, that meant becoming the first openly gay active player in NBA history in 2013. Knowing he'd be the first one through the wall, he's approaching cancer with the same mentality. He doesn't avoid the word cancer, and he doesn't like fixed deadlines on his life. His grandmother, he recalls, was given 6 months to live with stage 4 stomach cancer and ended up outliving the doctor who predicted it. That story fuels his refusal to accept any countdown as final. A key source of strength has been his twin brother, Jaron. In one emotional conversation, Jaron told him directly that, no matter what, he had to fight. Collins already knew how to do that. He'd been training for hard fights his entire life, pushing the frontiers of treatment. Because his tumor can't safely be removed and doesn't respond well to traditional chemotherapy, Collins and his medical team have turned to a more experimental path. He is currently receiving care at a clinic in Singapore that uses targeted chemotherapy delivered via EDV-stiny Trojan horse carriers, engineered to slip past the blood-brain barrier and deliver toxic payloads directly into tumor cells. The goal of this approach is twofold: slow the tumor's progress as much as possible, by time until a personalized immunotherapy can be created specifically for his cancer's genetic profile. For most patients treated only with radiation and standard chemotherapy, average survival after a diagnosis like Collins is around a year. He knows those numbers, and he's deliberately choosing a path that might not only extend his own life, but also generate data that could help future patients if it proves effective. Collins is also open about one advantage he has that many do not: the financial means and support network to travel globally for cutting-edge care. If his journey with experimental treatment doesn't save him, he hopes it can at least move the science forward for others. Living honestly, again, when Collins came out in 2013, mentors told him his decision might quietly help people he would never meet: young athletes, closeted fans, or anyone needing to see an openly gay man thrive in elite sport. He's carried that idea with him ever since. Now, by speaking publicly about his diagnosis and treatment, he's trying to offer that same kind of unseen support to others facing terrifying news in a doctor's office. He wants people to see that it's possible to talk openly about cancer, to fight hard, and to remain yourself even as the disease targets the very part of the body that defines who you are. "I have cancer," he says, "and I'm going to fight it." A simple sentence that, for Collins, contains the same stubborn resolve that once helped him battle giants under the basket and push open doors for LGBTQ athletes around the world. Whatever the medical charts say, Jason Collins is determined to treat this like every impossible matchup he's ever faced: know the opponent, use every tool available, and refuse to walk off the floor until the final buzzer sounds.